With weather heating up this July, TeaPro's fruit cooler box is firmly back on the menu. Gazing at our freeze-dried raspberries, we thought to ourselves how misunderstood freeze-drying is, and also wondered if it held the answer to one of the world's biggest problems.
2021. All we've really been able to talk about for the last year is the coronavirus. It's been easy to miss other things that have been going on in the world. The World Health Organization last week released a report explaining how world hunger has dramatically increased since 2019, with 8.4% of the world hungry, rising to 9.9% in 2020, nearly 1 in 10 of the population. The causes of world hunger are complicated, but when you look at the facts and you see that 1 in 10 are going hungry and a third of all food that we produce goes to waste, you've got to be concerned that we're doing the right thing to distribute that food. Further, it has knock-on effects for things like our fresh water supply, where 25% of the world's fresh water is used to grow food that is never going to be eaten. So what actually is freeze-drying?
We all tend to act differently under pressure. Water is no exception. And when pressure is removed from water, it tends to do some rather amazing things.
Step 1. Crystallization. Crystallization is the first step, and it's not so surprising. The water in a food is frozen, forming ice crystals, which enables the water to separate from the foodstuff around it.
Step 2. Sublimation. The second step is somewhat magical and known as primary drying. By decreasing pressure using a vacuum to around 0.06 of our normal atmosphere and adding a small amount of additional heat, the ice crystals completely skip melting into water. Instead, it undergoes sublimation and jumps directly to a gas. This is because there isn't enough pressure to form liquid water. Freeze-drying, therefore, takes water below its rather exciting triple point, where water can occupy a solid, liquid or gas state, and moves it directly over the border between solid and gas. Avoiding the liquid phase is what allows the structure of the food to be retained.
Step 3. Secondary drying. With 95% of the water already removed in primary drying, the final step involves a patient raising of temperature over a long period of time. This breaks any final bonds between food and water to remove any residual moisture.
All right, just wait your turn.
When it's ready, could you just shove it in my mouth?
Don't you be a smartass.
I'll crank the atrocity channel.
Hydrate level 4, please.
Is it ready?
Here you go.
Oh boy, Mom, you sure can hydrate a pizza.
So is freeze-drying this new crazy thing?
Well, funnily enough, Tatiana, freeze-drying was used by the Incas, who flourished in Peru from 1438 to 1533. The Incas were freezing potatoes on top of the chilly Andes Mountains. Then they would put their frozen goods under the hot summer sunlight, turning them into chuño, which roughly translates to frozen or wrinkled potato. Chuño is still very popular in Peru and Bolivia and is used to make chairo, a famous Bolivian soup, as well as many other dishes.
In Japan, a similar process was used by monks to preserve tofu, using the snow and low atmospheric pressure of the high altitudes of nearby mountains.
In 1906, Jacques-Arsène de Sonvaux, considered the inventor of freeze-drying, discovered the key process behind freeze-drying. During World War II, freeze-drying was used to transport plasma as it was safely preserved, making travel easier as it isn't heavy and easy to rehydrate without losing quality.
In 1965, Nestlé released the first freeze-dried instant coffee. And freeze-dried ice cream was launched into space aboard Gemini in 1965 and Apollo 7 in 1968.
The biggest advantage of freeze-drying food is that it not only enables it to last for decades while still maintaining its flavor, color and texture, but it also keeps most of its nutritional value.
Today, Pfizer is considering freeze-drying the vaccine in the United States to facilitate access in rural areas that might not have the required equipment for keeping the vaccine at sub-zero temperatures. So, is freeze-drying really the solution to world hunger and the future of food? Well, it's going to maybe be part of the solution. Let's say we've got a lot of challenges that we're tackling as a world with increased population and climate change. And if food scarcity is going to continue to grow, maybe the freeze-drying can be part of the solution. But there are going to be challenges with its adoption. We already know that it's quite expensive to get a freeze-drying machine in your home, costing between £2,000 and £85,000. And further to that, the electricity costs are about 8 times the amount of normal air drying. And then you're going to have to factor in maintenance on top of that for your machine. But with everything in technology, you get improvements over time, and that cost may go down. And with sustainable and renewable energy sources being more increasingly used, perhaps that is going to be less of a problem as well. I guess part of the problem is also going to be convincing people that whilst freeze-drying has so many benefits, such as the longevity of food, increasing from maybe just a few days of shelf life to up to 30 years, still retaining its nutritional value, form and shape, that the reputation of freezing food isn't so great at the moment. We have chefs like Gordon Ramsay who berate anyone who even get close to a frozen food item. And so maybe learning a bit more about freeze-drying is going to be required before it has mass adoption. But all we know is that with world hunger on the increase and food scarcity increasing at the same time, we have an opportunity to use the food that we do have, that we currently waste, in order to be a part of the solution to this problem. And so maybe it may not be now, but at some point in the future, we may see freeze-drying become a part of our regular diet.